Ethiopia, an overview of culture and how HIV affects the Ethiopian people, by Kristen, Darla, and Joshua. Demographics of the Ethiopian people in the United States. There's a growing number of African Americans currently residing in the United States. African Americans make up the second largest race behind Caucasian people. An estimated 38.9 million African Americans live in the United States. Ethiopia is a small country based in Northeast Africa, and it has a smaller but significant populace in the United States. It is estimated that there are slightly above 228,000 Ethiopian Americans today, but also around 68,000 with Ethiopian ancestry, most of which reside in the South, where there is a higher African American population in general. Ethiopia is a country located in the northeastern part of Africa. Ethiopia has the second largest part of any African country. Ethiopia has a diverse population that is just over 100 million. Ethiopia is a sub-Saharan Africa's oldest state and was the location where archaeologists found the oldest known human ancestors. Ethiopia functions under a federal republic in which the prime minister is head of the government, and executive power is government-controlled. Religion in Ethiopia is a very important virtue. Ethiopia has a largely Christian population, with the majority belonging to the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church. There is also a small number who practice Islam and Judaism. How does the Ethiopian culture view health and illness? Ethiopian views toward health and illness are similar to African American cultural views. Health and illness all start with the belief about life and nature of being. Life is looked at as a process rather than a state. All things living or dead influence one another. The Ethiopian culture's definition of wellness required holistic well-being in every area. The definition of health is being one and being harmonious with nature. Any disruption in this harmony would lead to illness. Illness could occur from several sources, including demons or evil spirits, which would disrupt their holistic well-being. Health maintenance and disease prevention. Ethiopia is a low socioeconomic area. Most Ethiopians' practices include things that are very cheap and can be found in nature. Adequate rest and a clean environment are basic health maintenance practices. Health maintenance is achieved through proper dieting, including a hot breakfast, and laxatives are also used for cleansing when the Ethiopian is feeling sick. Most disease prevention techniques are found in nature. Ethiopians use things like turpentine, herbs, onions, and garlic to protect health. As previously mentioned, Ethiopians are very holistic and believe all types of health coincide with each other. Physical health is important to Ethiopians and usually maintained by basic cleanliness. Mental health and spiritual health are held a bit higher and can ultimately affect physical health. Much like the United States, mental health issues are taboo in Ethiopia. Ethiopian culture does not take mental health as an actual illness, rather than an imbalance in your spiritual health. Spiritual health is regarded as the most important in Ethiopian culture, and mental and physical will fall into place if spiritual health is strong. Spiritual health starts with a strong religious relationship to God and family. If this relationship is altered, ultimately disease in some form will occur. Considerations of time in Ethiopian culture. The African American Ethiopian cultures are very present-oriented. This can be attributed to their values and their appreciation for process rather than the current state. This means that instead of focusing in the past or the future, the Ethiopian cultures like to focus their time in the here and now. Ethiopian considerations of space. There's a very close personal space among Ethiopians. Many households have many family members, and Ethiopia is a very heavily populated area, leading to their feelings of close personal space. Ethiopia and social organization. The Ethiopian culture is extremely family-oriented. A big difference between American and Ethiopian culture, however, is that the household is usually dominated by the females. They take care of the children and the upkeep of the house. There's a great sense of community as well, which can be contributed to the strong affiliation to the church. Overall, Ethiopians rarely do things independently. Many decisions, including health care decisions, are made by the group over the individual. Health issues among Ethiopians. Ethiopians face very similar health issues as the rest of the African American community. Some very common diseases are sickle cell anemia, diabetes, hypertension. As mentioned before, Ethiopians are far less likely to suffer from mental health disorders. This is because of the negative stigma towards these diseases, and Ethiopians are much less likely to seek mental health clinics versus other types of medical care. While the Ethiopian people might still have the mental illness, they are less likely to report it, therefore not having a statistic of it. Other common health issues among Ethiopians that are not present in the United States are diarrhea-related malnutrition issues, such as drinking unclean water, not eating enough food, and infections caused by unclean water. Gender roles in Ethiopia. Ethiopian women have a reputation of being very strong. The family looks to their mother for their strength. Ethiopian women are expected to be subordinate to men, and their primary roles include taking care of home and children. Many women in rural areas do not have access to proper health care during pregnancy. Cultural factors that affect health care. The cultural factors that dominate the Ethiopian population have a direct relation to the poor health care received in Ethiopia. Where many suffer from illnesses that are plaguing the country, including HIV. The rural population that has limited access to health care and other opportunities make up 89% of the population, versus the 11% in the urban areas. According to the World Health Organization, in 2005, only 6% of all childbirths were accompanied by a skilled professional. Most were accompanied by other women of the family, and men were not usually present during childbirth. Until 2007, Ethiopia has no pre-hospital care or emergency services to treat illnesses that are easily manageable in the United States. Many treatments, even for recovering after birth, are medicines such as herbs and natural remedies that are not adequate for successful recovery or hinder the benefits of modern medicine. Some of the spices and herbs that are commonly used for cooking and traditional medicines have been proven to counteract the medicine that is being provided to treat some of these illnesses. Social factors affecting healthcare. Socially, many Ethiopians do not like to go to traditional doctors for ailments. It is socially accepted to go to traditional healers rather than a doctor. This leads to increases of illness and deaths that are preventable. Efforts are being made to improve the educational system and disease education of Ethiopia, but many challenges are still being addressed. Ethiopia is considered a less than satisfactory in providing education to the children of Ethiopia, and many rural, poor tribes do not value education over labor. Ethiopia has recently developed a 5-year, 6-pillar growth and development transformation plan. This plan hopes to increase the education level of Ethiopia, as well as making education more affordable to rural areas. Environmental factors affecting healthcare. A major environmental factor that hinders Ethiopia's growth and progress is their battles with severe droughts. Ethiopia's droughts have continually increased, leading to increased need for food and aid to Ethiopia in the last few decades. These droughts make any type of normal crops very difficult for the Ethiopians to harvest in order to provide food for their people. More land is becoming deforested, and with a lack of water, turning into deserts that are unable to sustain adequate agriculture to support the population of Ethiopia. The lack of water and proper resources is having a devastating effect on the rapidly growing population. This rapid population growth, coupled with poor health care and disease awareness, continues to raise the population born with communicable diseases. Some environmental factors and issues derive from the corruption and suppression of the Ethiopian government, as well as the ongoing war between Eritrea and Ethiopia over their borders. The Ethiopian government has been cited by the United States for human rights abuses to suppress groups that threaten the reign of Ethiopian government. The Ethiopian military has also been reported to abuse some Ethiopian villages and committing atrocities such as rape and domestic terrorism. These rapes only help to further the spread of communicable diseases and HIV/AIDS. How HIV affects Ethiopia. HIV in Ethiopia has been a prevalent health-related issue since 1984 when it was first detected. Not much was known about the disease back when it was first discovered, which led to its ultimate spread that have claimed millions of lives and left many people without their families. Many Ethiopian families did not know that the disease was spread sexually and also through birth. This led to an increasingly alarming amount of babies being born with the disease. Even today, most of the rural villages are unaware of the fact that many of the men and women are HIV positive, and unknowingly give birth to an HIV positive child. Interestingly, since the detection of HIV in the 1980s, many Ethiopian villages have either a very old population or a very young one. This is because of the fact that most children are born with HIV, do not get proper treatment, and usually die before reaching middle adulthood. The older population is still alive today because of the disease was not recorded until the 1980s. The prevalence of HIV in Ethiopia. In Ethiopia, there is an estimated 1.2 million people living with HIV/AIDS. With 90,000 HIV-positive women, there is an estimated 14,000 HIV-positive births and a total of 28,000 AIDS deaths, and an estimated 800,000 AIDS deaths of orphans annually. Those numbers are alarming in consideration with the population and how many HIV-positive births happen annually. The widespread pandemic of HIV/AIDS in Ethiopia has a direct correlation to poor healthcare and educational systems in Ethiopia. The lack of access to proper healthcare, especially in the rural areas, is the reason so many rural citizens are diagnosed with HIV/AIDS and are unaware of this. They then reproduce, leading to many HIV-positive births. The urban areas of Ethiopia, while making some healthcare progress, suffer from inadequate healthcare equipment and resources to support such a large portion of the population. While these citizens are diagnosed and aware of their affliction, there's also still a severe lack of medicine and contraceptives. The spread of HIV/AIDS is still a growing problem. Several organizations are making efforts to distribute free contraceptives to the population of Ethiopia, but some traditional and religious beliefs of the Ethiopians are against the idea of contraception. So some of these people know that they're spreading HIV/AIDS, but yet their rituals and what they're accustomed to prevent them from taking the necessary precautions when engaging in sexual intercourse. Here's a short video about a ritual that spreads HIV/AIDS. For the sake of time, I will not be playing this video, but feel free to watch, as this ritual is very harmful to many women in Africa. This ritual is called the ritual of the hyena. Most of these practices are in Malawi in Africa, but also have been known to have been practiced in parts of Ethiopia. In this ritual, there is a designated hyena, which is an older man, that is expected to sleep with every woman in the village as a coming-of-age ritual when they turn 13. Almost every one of these hyenas are HIV positive, yet this sexual ritual is expected to occur with no form of sexual protection or contraception. This largely attributes to the spread of HIV, because in each village, every woman is expected to sleep with the hyena. This means that if every woman will be exposed to HIV, therefore giving to their baby if they become pregnant. So here's an example of a simple thing that could be fixed with proper sexual protection and contraception, yet the rituals prevent the Ethiopian people from taking these precautions, therefore further leading to the spread of HIV/AIDS in the area. Treatment of HIV and AIDS. Many Ethiopians have access to HAART, which is antiretroviral therapy. This therapy helps to ensure that they live a moderately normal life and are able to keep their T-cell count in good ranges. Though in 2004, a big push for HAART was initiated, over 200,000 people still needed access to HAART. While this number is better than the national average, this indicates that healthcare in Ethiopia does not have the means to care for the amount of people suffering from HIV. Interestingly, from various research and assessments from infected individuals and people who spread HIV, the incidence was much lower in younger males who were educated and working than those who were not educated and working. This indicates that more teaching needs to be spread in order to educate the rural communities on the ways of transmission and ways to prevent HIV. Antiretroviral treatment coverage reached 62.3%, which is above the national average of treatment of AIDS. However, prevention of mother-to-child transmission of HIV coverage was only 9.3%. So while Ethiopia is above the national average of treatment, there's still an alarmingly amount of high mother-to-child transmission from birth. Some common missteps U.S. healthcare providers may make when treating these patients. As healthcare providers in the United States, we most often just look at the problem of the patient rather than the holistic being. That being said, the culture, rituals, and teachings of the people of Ethiopia are very important to their families and their self-worth. Many Ethiopian communities still practice voodoo, healings, teachings, and herbal remedies that have been passed down among generations. Their sexual rites of passage example of the hyena, are also important to them. As a U.S. healthcare provider, teaching patients about safe sex is a must. Unfortunately, unprotected sex is primarily how the disease is spread among the people of Ethiopia. As a U.S. healthcare provider, might not understand the reasoning behind some of these sexual practices, but providers still must be cautious and address the issue with unprotected sexual relations. They need to educate the people that they encounter. With the people of the Ethiopian heritage, one must understand how important some of the cultural aspects are to them, and the U.S. provider must work to compromise with both forms of care. The most important thing is that the U.S. healthcare provider be culturally sensitive and have the patient's best holistic interest at heart. How Ethiopia affects the United States and other regions of the world. Ethiopians' connection with the United States and other major world regions played a central role in the development of the country and its citizens. Ethiopia has always been involved in global trade, with its many trade product being coffee and oilseeds. More recent conflicts in Ethiopia and the surrounding countries have created a major refugee problem when Eritrea separated from Ethiopia in 1993. The two countries still have disputes over their borders. The United States currently provides nearly $500 million a year in aid, plus military aid, to Ethiopia. However, with the current population of 85 million, that's only $5.88 per citizen. So, not a lot of money is going to these people each year. I mean, that's something that you can barely live off of, or live off of at all. Ethiopia does receive food and medical aid from other foreign countries such as Canada and other European countries, but it does not sustain them in a way where they could live a normal life. The United States is increasing pressure on the Ethiopian government to provide for their citizens versus using the aid money to suppress anti-government groups. Furthermore, several medical organizations, including Doctors Without Borders, have been making great efforts to combat the healthcare and medical issues in Ethiopia. These medical groups are primarily targeting giving education and teaching about the spread of HIV/AIDS in order to decrease the amount of transmissions. We hope you enjoyed our presentation about Ethiopian culture and how HIV affects Ethiopia. Here are some of our references and why we chose them.